Going here, we're just after 7 o'clock, so I know there's a football game on tonight as well, so. All right, well, welcome everybody to our information night tonight. We're very excited to finally be having an information night. It's been a long time in the making, and we'll share our story with you as we make it through the evening. So, but thank all of you for coming out. So this is what makes this all happen. So we very much appreciate all of you coming, and yeah, thanks a lot. So we're going to do a couple thank yous here now that we're getting going. So we're going to start with the Kerrobert Reddi Mart. So thank you very much, Daryl, and your Reddi Mart family for donating all the donuts and the water and the coffee here tonight. So thank you very much. We also want to thank the Kerrobert Chamber of Commerce. So they've sponsored the evening tonight. So again, they're the champions are just with us as well. So thank you very much, the Kerrobert Chamber of Commerce. And the town of Kerrobert. So the town of Kerrobert, they've been just a great support all along the way. So the town of Kerrobert and Mayor Mike Mitchell, thank you to all of you for helping make this evening happen. And Paul and Marsha, thank you so much for coming out tonight and joining us for this evening, and we very much look forward to the rest of the night. So thank you for coming out. Okay, next I'm just going to take us through our agenda. This is what the evening will look like. So we're going to start with an introduction of our board of directors. We're going to get to hear from His Worship, Mr. Mike Mitchell, from the town of Kerrobert. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, how we got here, and then the exciting part of the night, we got the presentation from Paul, our radio hosted business analyst. Then we're going to go over our goals, the overview of our investment shares, next steps, and how, if you're interested in investing, and then we'll spend a little bit of time on the Q&A at the end. And the Q&A, there is also I think there's a paper on each of the tables as well, if you want to have a look at some of that frequently asked questions. All right, so I'm going to ask board members as we introduce you just to stand up. Maybe if we can hold all applause until everybody stood up. So board member Richard Anderson, Kimberly Burgard, Trina Duane, Megan Height, Daryl Morris, myself, Don Snell, for those of you who don't know me, our president, Riley Wack, Charlene Zummer, and Brandon wasn't able to make it tonight. I don't think he's up there. Also, we'd like to really thank Ariel Murphy, our secretary treasurer. So big round of applause to Also, a big shout out to our membership development representatives. So I'm not going to mention all of our names tonight, but this is a group of people that have volunteered to help us out along the way. So we're very excited, and you'll be seeing names on our site as we move forward. And if anybody else is interested in being a membership development representative, you can reach out to one of us board members afterwards. So. Okay, with that, I guess it is my pleasure to introduce His Worship, our Mayor, Mr. Mike Mitchell.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yep. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Paul, Marsha. Appreciate you coming to speak. Like many small towns, citizens of Kerrobert and area have stepped up in the past to maintain the future of our community. Whether it be for recreations, the Reddi golf course, pool, ball gardens, etc., to the critical infrastructure of the new hospital, fire department needs, and just recently the helipad and the group home from Prairie Branches. is the dedication and support of our town and area are second to none. And now this cooperative group has come together. For the last 2 years, they have been working hard to bring this initiative together to help build the future of our community. In these times, it's hard to get businesses started, and capital funding is hard to acquire. Lots of great ideas, believe you don't get off the ground, do this. Investing in our own community, and with the help and direction of this group, we can get needed businesses started and up and running. The town continues to work on many key projects such as the water, sewer, paving of the streets, and our next priority is getting the old hospital removed. We have a vendor selected to complete this, and with just some final red tape to get through, we hopefully will have this completed this year. This area will then be ready for new development to help with our housing shortage. Having a well-staffed hospital, good school, various businesses, and recreations all help draw people to our town. Adding new businesses will help Kerrobert be more desirable for people looking for a good, safe place to live. The town has been receiving calls from people looking to reside here, where housing shortage is a big concern. The town is looking for solutions, and ideas to help this going into the future. On behalf of myself and council, we share the same vision and dedication, and will work alongside this group to help in any way we can so we can continue to build and plan for the future of our community. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think we'll call Mr. Reddi Mart up to the. So Riley's the president of our association, and he's been working hard and one of the founding members.
Hello, thank you all for coming out. I would like to officially introduce you to the Kerrobert Growth Investment Cooperative. Our vision: bring commerce and community together to grow our future. Our mission: enable local investment by bringing community members together, promote new businesses through collaboration, support, and partnership, providing upfront capital support for new business owners, reducing risk and removing barriers, providing opportunities for community members to invest in local business. Our values: community support, connecting members with opportunities, growth, enabling businesses to service our community and create employment opportunities, sustainability, supporting local business to ensure our community remains attractive to future investment. The Kerrobert Growth Investment Cooperative is a locally driven group of community investors working together to spur new business development in Kerrobert. By pooling our resources, we're creating a fund that can support entrepreneurs, attract new businesses, and help our town grow sustainably. To be clear, we are not the co-op. There won't be a big red sign on the businesses we support. This is a separate grassroots initiative focused on community-based economic development. The idea for the cooperative began when the Chamber of Commerce learned that established businesses were interested in coming to Kerrobert, but hesitated due to the cost of developing their own commercial space. In response, we asked, what if local investors could step in and help bridge the gap? From that idea, the cooperative was formed. Our mission is to partner with new or expanding businesses by either investing directly or by constructing and leasing commercial space until those businesses are strong enough to take ownership. When that happens, our funds would be reinvested into the next opportunity, creating a cycle of growth and momentum. I would like to bring up Kim Burgart to tell you about our accomplishments so far.
Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Kim Bergart, and I'm honored to represent the Kerrobert Growth Investment Cooperative. So let's take a look at where we are now. In 2022 and 2023, a group of like-minded community members came together with a shared vision of creating an investment cooperative. Our goal was simple: to improve business opportunities in our community. We've made significant progress since then. We registered with the relevant authorities, created our own bylaws, and explored various investment options to determine the best business structure for our needs. In November 2024, we submitted a proposal to the FCAA to offer investment shares. After refining our offering document, it was approved in March of 2025. Bring us to June 1st, 2025 marked a major mark for the Kerrobert Growth Investment Cooperative. We can now legally begin selling memberships and investment shares. Our final deadline to sell investment shares up to a maximum of $1 million is May of 2026. I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude to everyone who has contributed to the journey so far, to the board members, community supporters, and all the individuals who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Thank you for your dedication and hard work. Your efforts have brought us to this point, and we're excited to see the impact that the Kerrobert Growth Investment Cooperative will have on our community. Let's continue to work together to achieve our goals and build a brighter future for everyone. I'd like to now call up Richard Anderson to introduce our keynote speaker, Paul Martin.
Welcome to our special guests, Marsha and Paul. Sure appreciate you being able to be here with us tonight and join us in this meeting. I have a few bio facts about Paul Martin, who's going to be our guest speaker tonight. Paul was born and raised in southern Saskatchewan. His work has been seen and heard in the province's media since the early 1970s. Yes, more than 50 years. Specializing in coverage of the business and political scenes, his career has spanned radio, television, and print and electronic media. Today, he is partnering Martin Charlton Communications, a public relations firm, providing services to a variety of public and private clients from Canada and around the world. Paul also sits on numerous boards and committees throughout our province. Paul received his Paul was recognized for his contribution to building Saskatchewan's economy with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Saskatchewan Economic Development Alliance in 2021 and the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal. Paul has been a voice for Saskatchewan business this past 50 years. He brings a positive message of our province's resilience, innovation, and ingenuity, be it rural or urban. He obviously loves what he does, and he's darn good at it. Please join me in a warm welcome for our Saskatchewan's premier business commentator, Mr. Paul Martin.
Perfect. You hear me? I'll play.
Yes.
That what happened? You got it? Working back there? Yeah. You hear it all right? Yeah. Okay. I got a radio voice, so I should be able to make it fly one way or the other. Well, thank you very much, Your Worship. Great to see you, and to the committee, to Riley and Richard for all of the. You and I have been talking about getting me up here for about a year. That tells you how long these folks have been doing this on behalf of this community. And listen, I got a kind of a full presentation here, but before I get into it, I just, I get to have a provincial perspective because I do the, communications across the entire province. And it gets me into doors. I get to meet business people from every corner of the province. And so it allows me to bring some context, and I hope that's what I do tonight, is to bring perspective, and that's what this presentation is about. But
Let me just start with this. This is the only community in the province doing what you are doing tonight. So let me underscore just how significant this event is. There are lots of communities in the province that are worried about their future. They talk about the economy, but they kind of stand around and wait and hope that, something will fall from the sky or a cabinet minister will magically get elected and bring, a car plant or something. It doesn't work that way. I say to the mayor, I've seen more economic development plans and heard more community strategies than you could imagine. And I don't care how good you write a plan. Give me 2 or 3 or 5 people in a community who give a shit. That's what I think makes things happen. So when I look around, let's get one of the real words. There you go. So when I look around here, and I have the opportunity, the pleasure to go for dinner with your committee tonight, and just listening to them talk about this journey that they've been on your behalf and the journey that this community is embarking on. I mean, put your shoulder to the wheel. This thing is really interesting. This is a story. People like me will write about this because this is the community that's standing up on its hind legs and saying, I will not go into the night. We're going to fight. And I'll talk to you a little bit about sort of my experiences, the stories that I've covered, grand mistakes that I've made in covering those stories, and hopefully it'll give you a little context of where Saskatchewan came from, and you'll get a better perspective about sort of how I see things. But let me tell you, I came here for a reason tonight, and it's because I want to be a part of this. I would say there's only one other community in the province that's got, got something going like you guys are going here. They're maybe a little ahead of you, but it's a great model for you. And I think it also would be a great bar. If you could get past them, it would be wonderful. And that community is Newsom. And, Liam, I talked with the committee members about what they're doing down there. They likewise invited me to come down and talk about the plans that they've got going. And, they rallied around a few points in their community, and I think I'm going to focus on those tonight to help you sort of understand what's possible and what's not possible. So let's just get this thing going. And let me tell you, I'm going to cover some stuff here about some of the big stories that I had a chance to cover, but guess what? I blew it. I missed the story. I got a story, but I didn't get the story. And so, I'm going to start with my failings here as a journalist, and let's see if I can actually get this thing. But you know what, Ariel, you might have to do it for me. But we're beyond the wireless radio. There we go. So you can see the guy in the middle, or on the right there. The guy in the middle is me when I was 12. The guy over on the right-hand side is Mike Harcourt. When the shot was taken, we were in Hong Kong, and Mike was the mayor of Vancouver at the time. He later went on to be the premier in BC, but this was before he became the premier. And I was writing for something called Asia Pacific Business Magazine, and I was invited to go along on a trade mission that he was leading. There was about 7 business people from Vancouver. The guy on the left is one of them. He was the leader of their delegation. And this was when China was first opening up. So some people at 1984, 85, somewhere in there. Yeah, you heard, I've been around since the 70s, so you're going to get a lot of ancient history here tonight. And they were over there, basically China was opening up, and this group in Vancouver decided to start a business in Guangzhou, which is the 3rd largest city in China, and at the time was Vancouver's sister city. So that's why the connection. But they were opening a business, and they were selling surgical equipment to the hospitals in China, who had just opened up to the West, and so they were still quite behind in terms of technology. So they used this notion of twin cities to find ways to create connections. So before we went to Guangzhou, which is the very bottom south end of China, we went to Hong Kong. So Hong Kong was still an independent country at that point. It's not part of China, but back then was an independent sort of protectorate of the UK. Now, to give you context, Hong Kong is the island is footprint's about the same size as Saskatchewan. It has 6 million people at the top. So unlike here where we build out, they build up. And they ran out of space for the airport, so they actually they had to build a bigger airport, and there was no room, so they just built an island. They just started pouring rock into the ocean, and they got to the top, and they made it big enough they could land 747s on and park ships in it. And it became like the sort of Southeast Asian hub. But, you know, when I was going there, there was so much people. The towers were so tall. When you came in, and they only landed 747s in there. They didn't have room for small airplanes. They had to move so many people. They'd come down the mountainside like this. So you'd come down very steep, and then you'd bottom out at the land. When you're coming down, you were actually in between towers, like residential towers. So you could look out the window of the airplane and you could see people cooking dinner. And it was that crowded. But, you know, as we're there, here's what we learned. There's 6 million people in Hong Kong, but there were 8 million jobs. So they were short 2 million people. So employers were going nuts. And what did they do? China's opening up. It's just up the river. So they pushed 2 million jobs up the Pearl River into Guangzhou. And China was sort of overwhelmed by all of this, and so they created what they called a special economic zone. It was the first one they did. They were trying to embrace capitalism, but they really didn't know what they were doing, but they started with this, and they called it Shenzhen. So we spent 3 days, Mike and I and the rest of these guys, and then we went up for the next 4 days into Guangzhou, into Shenzhen, into mainland China. And Mike and I are sitting there having, we're probably having a banquet and drinks or something, but we go into, when we're into Guangzhou, he says to me, and I'm the only journalist on the thing, it's just him and then these business guys. So he and I kind of, you know, we hung out together because the business guys were doing business, and he wasn't needed for that. So he comes to me and he says, "You want to meet the mayor of Guangzhou? I'm going to meet him." And I said, "Absolutely." So he said, "Meet me in the hotel lobby at 6:30 on Saturday night." And my first question is now, why are you going to meet the mayor at 6:30 on a Saturday night? Like office hours? And he goes, "I don't know. They told me that's the time because that's when we can get there." First in. So we go down to the lobby and they put us in the car and we got a police escort and sirens and all that stuff. We're crawling through the city at about 5 miles an hour because that's how fast you go. It's so crowded. We remember coming around the corner. There was a chalk outline of a body on the street. Some pedestrian had been whacked or whatever. It was just so congested. You had no idea. When we get into the meeting, then Harcourt says to his counterpart, "So what's your biggest issue right now?" And the mayor of the Chinese city, and this is a big city, right? Like 10 million people. He said, "I've got the city cordoned off by the military." And so he says, "Well, listen, why don't you do that?" And Harcourt is pretty interested. He's like perplexed. And the mayor says to him, "Well, here's the deal. You were just in Hong Kong, and you saw what was going on. 6 million people, 8 million jobs. 2 million jobs get pushed into my town. 2 million jobs. Think about that. That's more jobs than in all of Saskatchewan, like quite a bit." And he said they're coming from the farms into the city to work in these new factories that are being built here. And they're coming at a rate of 6,000 people a day, and I can't house them. So I cordoned off the city till I can get some housing done. So hit that slide for me. I'll just show you. So there's these people moving in. Yeah, there's Hong Kong. That's that congested little city. There they go up. And that one with the crosses on it, that's the famous Hong Kong Bank building. Next one. Hopefully these first ones. And this is what the farms were like in China at the time. So they were moving in from the farm into the city at a pace of 6,000 a day. And the first thing that happens when you get into the city and you get working in the factory, the next one, this is what their factories look like. You start to get a steady paycheck. You've got cash in your pocket. When you come from a subsistence existence to now having a steady paycheck, you know what the number one thing that you want is? Better diet. You want protein. So what story did I cover? I got a story that said, here's a city where the mayor is getting 6,000 new jobs a day. There ain't a mayor in Canada who wouldn't kill for 6,000 jobs, and this guy's getting it every day. It's a plague for him. It's a pestilence. But you know, the story I missed was what this meant for Saskatchewan. Hit the slide. This demand for protein changed the way Saskatchewan operates. Anybody here go out on a farm? Yeah, exactly. Right, some of you with some silverish hair. When you were a kid, did you grow a lot of lentils on the farm? No, right? I mean, there was that one guy who grew lentils in Saskatchewan. You remember Darrell? Well, I used to say, oh, Darrell's elevator doesn't go all the way to the top floor. And then the year 2000 comes along after all of these 500 million people moved from the farm to the city in China. And they started working in these factories that created the biggest middle class the world has ever seen. And they were all demanding protein. Well, what did we have to do? The demand was on farmers. So we started to change our rotation. We started to add pulses, chickpeas, and lentils, like we had never done before. All of a sudden we have 3-crop rotation. That's the story I missed. The middle class emerged in China that changed the way we live here. You think about it, Saskatchewan hasn't really had a bad year since 2000. Well, it's because of this. And I had missed that story. And for me, this became context, perspective. Get the next one. But there was one guy who figured it out. This little guy here from Davidson, Sask, lives in Regina now. His name's Murad El-Khatib. Comes from a Turkish family. They moved to Davidson. Family doctor, that's why they moved there. So he grew up in Davidson. Spoke Turkish at home as a kid. His mother was the first, not only the first woman reeve of an RM, she was the first Muslim woman reeve of an RM in Saskatchewan. They kind of were blazing some trail. Well, the center of the trade for lentils in the world is Turkey. So this kid knew it. He was working for the trade partnership at the time. He started a little business in his garage. He said, this lentil thing's going to take off in Saskatchewan, and I know how to sell them. The little company called Saskatchewan Pulse emerged into with the merchant with the Turkish family, the Arbel family, and of course he spoke Turkish. He knew them. They were in the pastas, and they were the main distribution importer exporter in Turkey, and they were, you know, taking lentils from around the world and selling them into India and the Middle East and North Africa, and he became the new supplier. And today the company's called AGT. This is Murad El-Khatib. He took that change. I missed the story. This kid didn't. He had to figure it out. Well, a few years ago, Ernst & Young, the accounting firm, has a competition every year they call the Entrepreneur of the Year Award. So they do it locally, so you have it in Saskatchewan, and then if you win Saskatchewan, you go to Alberta, and you have the prairies, and then you go to Canada. Well, he won them. He won Saskatchewan, he won the prairies, he won Canada, so he goes to the world. So now he's a finalist in the World Entrepreneur of the Year. And it's placed, the event is being held in Monaco. And the last two guys on the podium, this kid and Bill Marriott, the Marriott Hotel fan. Guess who walked away with it? Davidson Sask. Entrepreneur of the Year for the world. And just a few weeks before he got that award, he'd been up in Norway. They got an award from the UN, and it's sort of they call it the business equivalent of the Nobel Prize. And it's called the Global Citizen Laureate. You know, it's because when the war broke out in Syria at the beginning, they had all these refugee camps that were built on the borders. Because people were trying to flee from the battles that were going on in Aleppo and some of those cities. So he had this company to send 800,000 meals. Why? Because those people, their main staple in their diet is lentils and pulse crops, and that's what he does. So they gave him this award. So he wins basically the Business Nobel Prize of the Year and Entrepreneur of the Year for the world, all from Davidson Sask. But why? Because he's the guy who saw the trend that changed it all for us. He was smart enough to figure that out. Hit the next one, please. Ariel, if you don't mind. And once you've got more demand for food, that means there's not making any more farmland, so we've got to just get more intense in our agriculture. We have to produce more of the land we've got, which meant more inputs. And that's what Saskatchewan's got. Potash, fertilizer. You saw what happened in 2005. We started to see this huge wave of investment coming into the province, building potash mines and expanding all the existing ones we have. And then it hasn't stopped. We got Janssen now. BHP has decided they're going to enter. They're the world's biggest mining company. They only do hard rock stuff like copper and iron and stuff like that. They've never done potash. But they've decided, okay, we're going to go into this. Why? Because the world is getting more populous. We're going to need more food. We got to get into this game. So about 10 years ago, they said, we're going to enter the potash game. How do we do this? Now, we're number one in the world in our category. So we're not going to enter a new category and go in as number 17. We're going in as number 1 or number 2. So there's 2 ways to do it. I buy my way in or I build my way in. So what did they do first? Tried to buy Potash Corp. Remember that? They did the bid. It failed. $50 billion deal. Fell apart. So now they're building them up. Now they're Janssen. What, halfway through? 3/4 of the way through? $25 billion project. So what you see here is the world started to change. Where it first was in China with the emergence of the middle class and all those factories that made everything made in China that we've been buying for the last 20 years. Now it's starting to happen in India. You're going to see another middle class. We're going to see another wave of this. But the demand pattern globally changed, and it came into alignment with everything Saskatchewan produces. Food, fuel, and fertilizer. The 3 Fs. And I missed that story. What did I see? 6,000 jobs. I missed a global transformation that we are in the center of. And we don't talk about it around here. I think we as a province have missed that. So when I come here tonight and I see a community that's decided we got to rally around what we've got here, I get kind of excited about that because that's time I'm not going to miss the story. As you guys are on with it, I'm going to come here and I'm going to help you understand the story. Put the next one. So we've seen all this investment go into potash, and we're in the second wave of, get the next one, 15 billion a pot. And then when you create this kind of opportunity, there's a saying in economic development circles, people follow opportunity. You see stuff start to happen. It takes a couple of years, and you can see it in Saskatchewan's population numbers. The biggest story I covered through most of my business writing career was people leaving Saskatchewan, out migration. And that changed in 2005. Why? Because investment started to flow into the province and we started to build potash mines and started to change the way we were doing farming practices. And since then, we've never looked back. Populations continued to grow year after year. Why? People are following opportunity. And if you look at the numbers, what you see is the investment started to flow into Saskatchewan in 2005, and the population started to increase in 2007. Yeah, there's a little lag time, but it's clearly evident those are they're not caused, they are correlated, it's not positive. So we'll hit the next one. Well, we're not there yet, folks. We've still got lots of work to do on the population thing. Yep, we've added about 15% to the population in the last 20 years. Let's put some challenges into some of our infrastructure. It's pretty tough. We get a room in a hotel or a hospital, in Saskatoon or Regina. You know, we've added all of that population, but not one tertiary care hospital there. We spend a lot of money on hospitals in the province, from Moosomin to Moose Jaw to Swift Current to now Waver's getting one, Prince Albert's getting one, Humboldt, but nothing in the major cities. So I think that might be the next place that we're going to go. But I'm hearing in rural Saskatchewan especially, we can't get doctors, we can't get nurses, right? This is a hard problem. I was listening to a couple of mayors bemoaning, sort of yelling at the premier, get me some doctors. And I kind of came back at him a little bit. I poked him and I said, well, listen, give the guy a hand. Like, make it easier to attract people to your community. If you're a nursing grad, you're 22 years old, you're going to run to Kamsack in search of a guy? I mean, get your town's population up to 5,000, you got a better shot at it. I mean, this is part of the thing we've got to be able to, and so when I to me, this is probably the most important thing. You know, I got a picture of airplanes there. Sunwing gave up on Saskatchewan. Air Canada stopped flying from Saskatchewan and Alberta. You think we have 3 million people, that would have been a conversation piece? We need more people. So when I hear a community like this one is going to put its own money where its mouth is and says we want to build a population, I'm going to be here to stand and talk about it for you. I'll crow from the hilltop on it. Because this is the critical key. And I would say to your committee, set a target population. It's a great thing. Like say, we're going to get another 100 people here. What a great target to chase. And if you're not getting there, you're going to have to twist the knobs and tweak things and say, what's it going to take to get that extra 10 people or 20 people? And then you get momentum going. And if you're a town in ascension, there's lots of towns in Saskatchewan that are not ascending. But if you're the one that's in ascension, people will gravitate to where the good stuff's happening. And I'll tell you a couple of stories as I go along about my experiences when we hit the next one. And here's the other thing that comes with population. So we just had the federal election. You know, they changed the number of seats in Parliament. They added a bunch. Every second census in Canada, every 10 years, they rejig Parliament based on the number of people they have. So the population of the country is growing. So they added 30 seats. Well, guess what? Alberta got 3 new seats. So first, when the oil patch started to take off in Alberta, we saw economic clout in Canada began to shift westward. Now, with population shifting, we're seeing political power start to shift westward. It's interesting how the new Prime Minister is spending a lot of time in Western Canada. The other one didn't know where it was. But this one's actually spending some time on here. Why? Because he's a money guy. He knows where the money's happening. He knows where the future of the country's at. And it's out here. And you guys are sitting in the middle of the oil patch.
So the two of us kind of walked around and went our own ways and just listened. And I walked into this breakout session, and I came in midway through, so I didn't hear the guy's name or his beginning, but he was from Newfoundland. And here's what I heard. And they were talking about how do you keep young people in your community. And all I picked up was, well, if you want to keep the young people in your community, you better make room for them at the leadership table. And I thought, that's an interesting line. I'm chair of the Economic Development Board in Regina. I can do that. So I came home and I basically tapped my son on the shoulder and I said, who are some of your buddies? And we got 15 kids together, and they were all in university, first, second year, mostly in the business school. And I said, I want to create this committee, and I'm going to give you all the issues that we're dealing with at the Economic Development Committee Board, and I want your take on them. So, a couple of things come out of this. Those kids took that seriously. They did the best work of any of us. They wrote a paper, they did research. I mean, they were just brilliant. And they came back with this 5-point plan. This is what you need to do to keep young people in our community. And this was about the year 2000, so we were still losing kids at that point. And, you know, we'd done some work with Action Saskatchewan, which was a provincial chamber initiative. And one of the questions we asked in that one was, we went to grade 8 classrooms in the province and asked the kids, at what age do you start talking among yourselves on the playground about moving to Alberta? Yeah, and the answer was age 12. It was just, oh, it was horrible. And it was clear they weren't getting that from reading the business section of the Globe and Mail every day. I mean, they were getting it at home. So what we had seen was Saskatchewan had lost its mojo. I mean, we had pretty much thrown it in the towel. These young people come along with a completely different answer. And, you know, the 4 points, the first 4 points were pretty predictable. We need jobs and that sort of stuff. But the fifth one was the one that caught my interest. It said, we need a buzz. Which means young people want a social life. So I say it's one of the challenges when you're attracting young med grads, for example. They want a social life. And one of the things those kids proposed is that, if you're familiar with Regina, Dudney Avenue has a bunch of nightclubs on it right by the old football stadium. And they proposed that we pitch extending the hours of the nightclubs on the Dudney Avenue strip from 2 in the morning to 4 in the morning. And at the time, we were in a civic election. And the alderman for that ward
was running on a campaign of restricting the hours of the nightclubs to 1 o'clock in the morning, because in his words, you don't need to hear squealing tigers at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, there it was. The old people want to turn off the lights, and the young people want to turn them on. And then this city councilor would be yelling at the premier saying, you know, do something to keep the kids from moving away. It's ironic. We became our own worst enemy on this thing. And it was just simply, listen to them, give them space. I presented this to the main board, and you know, they were so taken by this. And actually, that city councilor was on our board, which was kind of an interesting reading today. But they said, this is the best insight we've had in a long time. We took the chair of that committee and put him on our board permanently. We just made a space that we need that young voice at the table, because we're a bunch of, you know, business folks with hair this color that we're just not in touch with what we need to be in touch with. So I would just suggest to you, look for some young people that have a little fire and brimstone in their belly, and put one of them on your committee. You'll find it really quite helpful. They probably don't have a big checkbook to write, but they'll bring some energy to the table, and that's really what you need. Hit the next one. So, as I talk about the next big trend, I'm not going to miss this one. We're starting to see this happen in a big way. This is the next stage for agriculture. Is we're moving from selling raw materials to selling ingredients. And the telltale one is in canola crush. I mean, we're the big players in that now. And yeah, there's a couple of the plants that have been sidelined by tariffs and that kind of stuff, but I suspect that they're going to come along at some point down the road. But look, we're no longer selling just raw canola. We're selling it in components. And here's the deal that's kind of interesting on this. A canola seed is 45% oil, 55% meal. So when we crush it, we're going to move 45% of that volume in rail cars, but we'll put them in tankers rather than hoppers. But now we just freed up 55% of the rail space that would have been devoted to the full seed. So what are we going to put in there? There's an opportunity for us there. But also, 55% of the leftovers is meal. Has anybody here heard anybody talking about what we're going to do with canola meal in the province? It's not even on the table. What a giant business opportunity. We've got all this raw material here that we're going to, you know, probably take to a dump. Well, that seems unfortunate. They're doing some work with it at Yorkton. There is a demand for it because it's got protein. So there's an opportunity, but I don't see anybody doing it. So if that's happening in canola, what's happening in all the other fields that are going on right now? There's lots of opportunity for a community like this if you get a little creative and start to think about something like, get the kids in here, let them do some thinking for you. But remember this, we're exporters. So this tariff war that's going on, this is right in our face. I don't know if you saw the numbers today, but Canada's exports in April fell off the table. Now, the story is a little overstated because January, February, and March, we had inflated exports because people were trying to get stuff out of the country and buyers were trying to buy it before the tariffs came in. So in April, you know, that demand had been pulled forward already, so sure, it's going to drop off. When I did the breakdown today before I came out, I looked at those numbers. Here's what's interesting. Canada's exports collapsed. It was all automotive. Saskatchewan's exports really didn't change. I looked at the big ones. What do we got in energy? Didn't change very much. Food products, agriculture, didn't change very much. Potash, didn't change very much. So there's a Canadian Chamber just did an analysis of who's the most vulnerable to the tariffs from the States. They ranked all the cities in Canada, put the top 41 cities in the country. Who's the most vulnerable? St. John, New Brunswick's going to hit the worst. The least, Saskatoon is number 34, Regina is number 37 on the list of 41. I mean, those numbers that I saw today, or share with you now, it bears that out. And we're not feeling it as much. Yeah, if you're a steel producer in Regina, you're not a happy camper. But for the most part, we're not getting hit too bad. And, you know, even Trump knows what we produce because he put only 10% tariffs on potash, on energy, which is both oil and gas and uranium. So we're basically
missing. Why? Because he needs that stuff. And as soon as he puts a tariff on, as soon as our product hits the border, Americans have to pay the tariff, right? It's imposed on us, but it's paid by them, which is interesting. Most Americans don't know. They're the ones actually paying the tariffs. They think we are. But remember this, Saskatchewan is a small population, highly productive, and a large land base. So because we don't have very many people, we don't have much of a domestic market. I mean, imagine if Saskatchewan farmers could only sell to Saskatchewan consumers. 99% of our land is go out of production, right? We live on exports. In fact, as a percentage of our economy, we do more trade than any other province in Canada. And in the industrialized world, Canada is the same story. Small population, big land mass. We are the #1 trading jurisdiction in the industrialized world in terms of percentage of our economy. So the #1 trading company in the world, or country in the world, is Canada. And within Canada, the #1 trading jurisdiction is Saskatchewan. Could be argued the world's most successful global traders are right here tonight in this room. Now, how many of you think of yourselves that way? No, we don't think like that. It's a matter of perspective. So I'm going to give you a little more perspective. Get another. Well, I'll skip that one. That's just a fight about the week word. Oh, skip that. It's repeating itself. See, I said it right there. Culture and history. These are powerful tools that we don't think about either. So, you know, two or three conversations we've had tonight. Marsha and I, my wife, she's never been here before. This is about, I don't know. I haven't spoken in this room, but I've spoken in a couple others in this community over my career. But we got taken to the courthouse and told about the courthouse and all the history around the courthouse. Well, it's a beautiful piece of architecture. But it's historical. It's not a courthouse anymore, but it's still a talking point. History, culture, these things are powerful tools. Don't overlook them. Don't underestimate their power. When we think of the U.S., we think about them as this powerful country projecting itself around the world. And we always think of it in terms of military. Right? The U.S. has the strongest military, and that's how they project their force. No, it's not through the military. They actually aren't even fighting anywhere right now. Lots of wars going on, but they ain't part of them. You know how they project themselves? With culture. Hollywood. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. If you've been to a movie made in Hollywood, you know what it's like to live in America. CNN is the only worldwide news service. And guess what they feed? American propaganda around the world. This is how the U.S. projects itself around the globe. So culture becomes a powerful thing. The next one. I was talking with a retired Marine Corps general in the U.S. And he had just retired, and he had been the commander of Camp Pendleton, which is the Marine Corps' West Coast base just out of San Diego. So he said, I have 50,000 troops. The people rotate in every week. And he said, I got 50,000 personnel, and I got to keep them all on the same page. So how do I do that? So here's what he did. Every Friday at 2 o'clock, if you transferred out of the base that week, you had a mandatory meeting in the general's office. So, anybody, and he said any of my executive officers, if they were on the base, they had to attend too. And he said they got tired of this, but they kept up. And he said, what did I do? I had everybody in the room. And they have a thing in the military, it's called colors. And he said it's basically, it's a staff, and it's got chevrons on it. And if you're a military historian, you can read all the battles that this unit had been in. So it's their history. And he said, I would walk them through all the battles that this particular unit had been in since World War II, through Vietnam, Korea, all that stuff. And he said, here was the common denominator. We had never lost. He said, we had our asses kicked sometimes. We had to back up, regroup, and go forward before we won. But he said, we never once waved the white flag. So I'm not going to be the first general who presides over the first defeat. So he said, this is what I shared with my guys. Here's the level of performance you have to deliver while you're on this base. We will not lose. So that's the level you have to perform at. Isn't it interesting though? He used history and culture as a performance management tool, like to motivate the troops. He said, when I was a colonel in Vietnam, my contemporaries, Colin Powell, Warren Schwarzkopf, said I had a fire base in the north end of South Vietnam. I'm in the middle of the jungle, I'm in a valley. All around me in the hills, said I got 5,000 troops. There's 40,000 enemy in the hills. And he said every night we'd send out our little platoons. He said, like you see in the movies, we'd have to shoot them up in the jungle, and then they'd come back in the morning to the camp. And he said, why did I survive? Well, I had helicopters, and I could fly in more men, more bullets. And he said, day 72 of this battle, I'm looking around, and he said, I could tell, my guys were tired. And he said, I knew if the enemy came out of the hills in a drove, he said, we wouldn't stop and they'd run us over. So I had to start making a plan to evacuate. So he called in his officers and he said, we got to figure out how we can extract ourselves if this thing starts to unravel. And one of the things, he said, this won't make any sense to you, but it made sense to us at the time. One of the things we decided we would do is we would tear up our colors. And each of the officers would take a piece of it and we would eat it. And he said, our reasoning was this: we might give you this piece of ground, but we will not give you our history. We will not give you our culture, our soul, where we've been. And he said, we never told the troops, but they heard about it. The next day, he said, with new energy on camp, and they went out there, kicked ass that night. He said, the morning of day 93, we wake up, the enemy had given up. They pulled up. They decided this wasn't worth the fight. So he said, why did I win? Did I win? Is it better tactics? Better bullets? No, he said it was better history. Better command of that history. He used it as a motivator. Well, this town's got history. What are you doing about that? You can capture it. You can sell it. People will buy that. It's amazing. They will buy it. Let me show you why. What do you see there? You know what economic developers say? Oh, that's Saskatchewan. What a failure. There's not a damn smokestack anywhere. We have no factories, no anything. Right? Get the next one. Now, what do you see here? That's Tokyo. Those are apartments. You're right. Oh, hit the next one. Now, when you come back to this, yeah, when you go on a holiday, where do you go? Someplace different. You see any difference between those two pictures? Hey, we see nothing. Failure. There's a great story of a Japanese tour guide running a busload of Japanese tourists on the Trans-Canada just west of Regina. You know, it's flat there. Like on a clear day, you can see the back of your head. And he said, the driver's, going down the highway, and he sees this Japanese tourist sitting in the front seat, and he's just staring out the window. He's just fixated on something. He says, I look out there, it's nothing. Can't see anything. Like, this guy's eyesight's got to be spectacular. What the hell is he looking at? So he said, I get the tour guide over, and I said, that's that guy. What's he looking at? There's this exchange in Japanese, and he comes back, and he says, the guy says he's looking at nothing. And he loves it. Well, folks, we got a ton of nothing around here. Right? But it's all a matter of how you look at it. So what have you got around this community that you're just not looking at right? What's your perspective? There's so much opportunity here. And when I see what you're doing tonight, you guys, where are you, Richard? This is exciting. This is a community that's decided we can change that perspective. We can look at things differently. Get the next one. This is me again in another era. But I took a powwow group to Singapore. We got a contract to work at a shopping mall for the 3 weeks leading up to Christmas. They wanted some North American entertainment. We proposed we do a powwow. They thought that'd be a cool idea. So it took like an hour. We got 11 or 18 kids, lined them up, off we went. They paid for the whole shop on the other side. Did a powwow every day. So the first day we were there, I don't know, they finish the show, they do a round dance. You ever been to a powwow? They do the round dance where everybody in the audience gets involved and they do a circle. Well, there was maybe 50 people the first day. At the end of 3 weeks on the last day, 5,000 people were in the round dance. Went down every corridor in the mall, outside the front door, all the way around the building, the whole block, and back in. It was media coverage from Singapore to Kuala Lumpur. I mean, it was like astounding. They'd never seen anything like this. What I learned from that is our culture, our First Nations culture in this one, is an export. It's again, what do we got that's different? What somebody else has to see. For us, it's mundane. We see space. Yeah, so what? You know, you go up to Yellowknife, you know one of the fast things going on up there? They have actual charter flights from Japan to Yellowknife in the wintertime. Why? Because it's sort of sacred in Japan to make a baby under the northern lights. So they have pregnancy flights. Oh no, I mean, maybe that's not quite how they advertise it. Sort of like that, right? Yeah, and I want you to meet this guy, Nenad Bach. You've never heard of him. He's a world famous musician. So he was a good friend with Jerry Garcia's, the Grateful Dead, and worked with Pavarotti and U2 and all of those guys. So I got to meet him through a mutual friend in Toronto who used to work for Saturday Night Live. He introduced us, and Nenad has this view. And he said, here, a community that has these attributes: good coffee, good food, and good art will never fail. Good coffee, good food, good art. We start talking about, anybody be familiar with Austin, Texas? You know, South by Southwest, the fastest growing city in the U.S., all that stuff. 35 years ago, the mayor of Austin went to Stevie Ray Vaughan and Janis Joplin and Willie Nelson and said, tell you what, I'll give you the street corners, you get me the musicians. So they created a culture that all emerging, budding musicians could bust on the streets of Austin, Texas. That spun into South by Southwest and became like a cultural icon, fastest growing city in the United States today. Why? Good coffee, good food, good art builds a community. Well, imagine the town of Craven, about 1/100th the size of this community, is like the biggest festival in Western Canada every year. It's possible. You know, that's a one-off event. But I'm trying to convince the town of Gravelbourg they should do this, but do it only for French-Canadian musicians. Bring them all out, do the French-Canadian stuff in Western Canada. I'll bet you the feds would pay to have the French language pushed out into Western Canada. The musicians could do, have fun, write poetry, paint pictures, do all sorts of stuff. In Toronto, down on Cherry Street, years ago, before they got the waterfront all rebuilt, there was an old warehouse that somebody had refurbed, and they didn't know what to do with it. Nobody wanted anything, so they basically just carved it up into long channels. Each one was about 20 feet wide, and so a big warehouse, 20 feet, to put windows across the front. And they gave these things at a nominal amount to artists. So the front, where the window was the studio, and in the back, the artist lived in a little apartment. And so then these artists would paint all day long, and then you had all the emerging artists in Toronto captured in one little block. So if I'm a buyer or a connoisseur of art, it was really easy for me. I showed up in one building and I could, had 20 to choose from. And then if I got a little bit too successful, they'd cut me out, put in another startup. So you could do, I would say maybe the old home hardware in Gravelbourg sitting empty. Why wouldn't you just put a bunch of musicians in there? And anyway, you know what? They were deaf. They did nothing. I couldn't hear. This is a town. You guys have grabbed that. They won't. Guess which town's going to grow and which one's not? They got a lot of culture too. They can't seem to get their head around it. You guys got a lot of history here. Grab it. You really ever stopped on top of that hill and looked around and see how pretty this part of the province is? God damn it, you can see forever from here. Not a bad ad. Once Saskatoon had an ad that said it's so flat you can see the future from here. And they dropped that, and I don't know why. I think that was not a bad line. I think it was a good line. So, anyway, this notion of perspective, you guys, it's possible to make this stuff happen. But you need to believe. And you got a bunch of people here who put their hand up and said, let's have a go at this. Let them encourage you, support them, cultivate them, nurture them, protect them, join them. The only benefactor is going to be you and your community. It can happen, but it ain't going to happen from somebody in Regina magically sprinkling pixie dust on you guys. It's going to be you. The community's future is in your hands. And from what I've seen, it's in good hands. Thanks for letting me join me.
All right, well, thank you very much. That was just fantastic. What an inspirational speech, and yeah, thank you so much for coming out. That was great. Just one more round of applause. All right, I think we're going to invite Rodney back up.
Thanks again, Paul. We're excited to share an ambitious but achievable goal to raise $1 million in community investment that will stay right here in our town and be reinvested into new businesses and spaces that serve us all. There are two main ways we plan to partner with businesses. Building partnership. We can develop a space and lease it to a business for a set period. At the end of that period, the business will buy that building. That sale gives us the resources to help the next business start up. Or an equity investment. If a building isn't needed, a cooperative can invest directly by purchasing shares in a business. We act as a silent partner, sharing in the profits until the business is able to buy back its shares, freeing us to support the next venture. We are also looking for local entrepreneurs who are ready to start or grow a business right here in our community. If you have a business idea or are looking to expand, we encourage you to talk to one of our board members and come to a cooperative meeting to share your plan. We would love to hear from you. Our short-term goal is to bring one new business to town, but our long-term goal is much greater. We want to build a culture of entrepreneurship, attract the businesses we need, and support new housing options as well. Investors in the cooperative will receive dividends based on profits, but the real return will be the transformation we see in our community. More local jobs, a stronger school, increased property values, and a renewed sense of pride in our town. This is about building something sustainable together. How the shares will work. Membership in the cooperative will require the purchase of a $50 membership common share. This gives you the right to vote at an AGM and purchase preferred shares. Preferred shares are sold for $1,000 per share with no limit to the number of shares available to purchase. Preferred shares give you the ability to partake in dividends payments. Now I'd like to bring up Megan Height to give you a little bit more information.
So thank you again for giving us the opportunity to present our initiative with you guys tonight. As Kim mentioned, as of June 1st, we are able to start selling membership shares and investment shares to the public. So tonight is a very exciting first step for us in introducing ourselves to the community. So if you're interested in becoming a member, but you need maybe a little bit more information or need some more time to think about it, that's perfectly okay. We've left some follow-up forms for you guys to fill out on the tables. Like that. If you put down your information and any feedback that you might have for us and just drop it in the bin before you leave tonight, that will ensure that one of our board of directors reaches out to you within the next few weeks. Or I'm sure you know most of us board of directors personally, so feel free to reach out to any of us and we can schedule a sit down with you to go through the options and answer any questions you might have. And finally, if we sold you tonight and you are committed and you have your checkbook with you, we will have some of our board of directors in this back room after the presentation, and they can sit down with you to go through the membership agreement and get that filled out tonight. So I'll pass it over to Richard to finish up with a Q&A.
Thanks everybody for being here and hearing our presentation and Paul's presentation. Thank you for doing Paul, that was great. We can have a Q&A time now. If anybody's got questions, Don can run the mic around, and Paul is quite happy to do Q&A as well, so something from his presentation, if you have a question that you think he could answer, please refer to him or myself or any of our board members. We'll try and keep you informed of anything that you'd like to know from this evening's presentation. Just raise your hand and Don will run the mic back if there's anything.
I'll start. Hi, I'm Gary, and this is Faye, my wife here. We moved to town 4 years ago, and I think this is a tremendous initiative you guys are taking. This is what I was going to ask for. There's a ton of opportunity in this town. You just got to look for it, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, but there's a ton of opportunity here, and I think this is a great step. But I did want some emails and stuff, but there it is now.
Yeah, that's ways you can contact us. And of course, there's the forms on the table to fill out with any questions. And we sure appreciate your comments. And that's exactly the truth of what our cooperative is all about too. It doesn't have to be a huge project. We'll take any size and try and make anything we can work, anything that we can see that will be sustainable and help grow our community and benefit our community members is what we're looking for. So thank you for those comments. Yes,
yeah, the lights.
I actually have a question, Donnie.
Unfortunately for you, I always have something to ask. Just wondering if then the town is going to come on, because we used to have some initiative where new businesses did not pay town taxes for a certain number of years. So will the town be on board with this group of investors?
Don could probably answer that.
Yeah, where's Mike?
So as I mentioned in my speech, we will and have had initiatives for new businesses starting out. I don't remember the detail right off the top, but it is to do with the taxes and after starting out with a new business.
Yeah, and if you have any more questions on that, you can reach out to Tara at the town office. So, but I believe it's a 2 to 3 year tax.
Yeah, it used to be. I didn't know if they still had it, Donnie.
Yeah, it still is on one, so I'll reach out to her.
Okay.
And I think they were for incentives for new builds, new home builds, business startups, and there's quite a few incentives in the town. I do believe we'll be carrying them all on. So.
Dollar
Yeah.
lots? Donnie?
No, we don't have the dollar lot on right now, so we are,
So that's how we
in a lot
came
of
here.
discussions with a lot of different things at the town right now, but that's not an initiative that's on the table today.
Okay. You wanna bring people in, maybe it's the way.
We are considering all, a round table at council, we have all kinds of discussions and continue to explore them all, so. And we're certainly open to any suggestions and ideas as well, so we can share them with the town office as well, and we continue to discuss them and see what is the best model as we move forward.
Is there a time frame you guys are looking at and closing out, possibly purchasing shares, or it's gonna be open for years to come, or you're just gonna go to and get your goal and that's the plan, or?
Our licensing CAA is we have 1 year to raise $1 million, so we have a year to sell these shares.
Is there a minimum amount that you guys are hoping to obtain? Like if you don't obtain a certain amount, it might not be viable?
Yeah, the way the prospectus, the way it worked is we had a minimum amount that we would have to sell of $100,000. We weren't considering that we would have to go to that, and the maximum is the 1 million. And we really truly believe we can achieve that 1 million is our goal. We think we can. We have a year to do it, and then if it's successful and the cooperative is moving on and growing, you can apply and have a second. What do they call it? Just offering. Yeah, we could have a second offering, so then that could possibly be $1 million. We have 1 year for this particular.
What size businesses are you hoping to work with in the onset? So I notice a lot of our little tiny businesses that are the kind of the bread and butter of a town, i.e. bakery, coffee shops, place to have breakfast, additional things for kids to do, and places for families to be is what's going to attract the young people. And the bar, we only have one little tiny one now. So what size businesses are you guys hoping to work with at the beginning?
We would consider any size at all. Just looking for proposals that have viability to be profitable and sustainable and enhance some communities. So it wouldn't, small or large businesses of any type are definitely would be considered.
Are there any more examples available as to what was done in Moosomin and how successful or not they have been?
Paul would maybe answer that. He's familiar with what's been going on in Moosomin for sure. Do you mind, Paul?
Thanks. They've chosen a different model, so they're not raising capital in the community. But what they decided was their Achilles heel was population loss. And so they're situated on the Trans-Canada Highway, so they're pretty used to migrant traffic and that kind of stuff. So it presents some interesting opportunities, but also some concerns for them. So they decided by looking at demographics that the principal danger that they had was losing particularly older people because of healthcare. Moving to the big city where they needed access to doctors and hospitals. Bigger hospitals. So here's how they took that on. They decided that they needed to eliminate the space between Moosomin and the hospital. So they put $10 million on the table and they invested in their runway. And they've got the state-of-the-art air service to the community. So if you go there, they will tell you that it's 58 minutes from Moosomin to the RUH in a fixed-wing aircraft. So they know that if somebody needs that kind of medical care, it's 1 hour away. There's the hour to get there and the hour to get back. So it's a 2-hour thing, but it said they also needed to be able to deal with the helicopter that you guys have got coming here. So they put the best runway gear ever, so they can land this thing with 3 feet of visibility, either a fixed-wing plane or the helicopter. So in their words, there's 4 ways to get to the hospital. I can drive myself, I can drive a family member, I can go in the ambulance, that could be air, or I can go by fixed wing. So that's what they built it around. And when they pitched it, guess who stepped up? Nutrient, the potash company. And they put $2.5 million into the 10, and they said, if you put that runway in, it'll accommodate our jets. You're as close an airport to Esterhazy and Brokenville, where our big mines are, as Regina or Saskatoon. So they built the runway, and he said, interesting thing has happened. On the other side of the runway, from where they've got all their hangars, the private sector stepped up and bought up all that land, and they're building hangars and private aircraft, all kinds of stuff. It became a much bigger economic development driver than they thought, and that's attracting capital in the community. So they have to put up their own capital, like you guys are proposing here, which, I mean, they're going to watch you guys. It wouldn't surprise me if they follow this, because capital is, nothing happens till there's an investment. If you've got investment capital, you can do a tax break, but if I can add to that equity capital on top of it, man, this is a really attractive place to be invested, isn't it? My dollar becomes 3 or 4 or 5, and I'm the owner of the business. Hey, that's pretty sweet. I'll be taking that. Does that answer your question about Moosomin? Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
And I can maybe add to that just a little bit more. I've been reaching out to quite a few communities in the province as we've been on our journey here. So there's 3 other examples. I don't think any of the communities have gone to the length and the effort that we are, but there's some small communities. Abbey, Saskatchewan, south of here, they have a very strong economic development group there. Hazelet, Saskatchewan, and Gull Lake. And all of them, they've taken on smaller projects, maybe buying up an old building in town and renovating it and having it ready for a business. And some of them have had success moving businesses into them, and others are in that process right now. So, and we're all kind of communicating back and forth and working out what's working and what isn't. So.
Any more questions?
Would there be a possibility for a component to this to keep viable businesses that are needing to transition? Owners are getting older and they're looking for someone to take those over, because I can think of numerous ones that we've lost in the last 5 years. If there was maybe just that little bit of a push or somebody to help them, to keep that business going, it's a lot easier to utilize a platform that's already there and functioning than it is to even start one from scratch. And, we've had a lot of great businesses here, and there's maybe just been that little gap, whether it's funding or maybe some mentorship or different things like that have maybe let those ones lapse. And I think that would maybe be another avenue to, keep eyes on, is to maintain those businesses and keep them in the wings, as people maybe look at retirement or transitioning.
Yeah, I think that would be definitely something that we're interested in. Over the years, a lot of times ownership has got older and ended up closing the business down, like you said. So there may be an opportunity for us to partner with the new owners and the same type of thing, take an equity position and have them buy it out over time. Maybe remove some of the barriers to get into that initial business purchase. So I don't think that would be, that's actually a good idea, and it would keep a lot of the businesses going or have them transition into younger. And one of the things that Paul mentioned, it's never too bad to see these businesses or boards and our committees move over to the younger generation that have lots of good ideas and lots of good energy. So we'd be there to help in those ways, but at least look at the proposals for sure. No, thanks everybody. And stay around, have a coffee, and visit a little bit. And of course, if you'd like to write some checks or some more questions answered, just approach any of us. But basically, we're saying we want to fill the economic gaps that we have in our community to build business and population by doing it ourselves, by working together. All the groups, the chambers involved in this, the town of Kerrobert, our cooperative group, and then of course all of the citizens that are going to take part. So we just want to work together to build our community, and I think we've got a good start at it and a good kickoff this evening to work towards that goal. So thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
So just a couple final points here. Just remember there is some frequently asked questions on your tables too, so hopefully that